A fire at sea can be terrifying. There is no place to run and no fire department to call. At least initially, the crew of a burning vessel has only itself to depend on. As with all marine emergencies, the threat of fire can be minimized by a pair of related procedures: prevention and preparation. Prevention is the best form of fire protection, but even the most thorough prevention program won't entirely eliminate the potential for fire aboard your vessel. Because the threat of fire persists 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, it is essential to prepare both the vessel and the crew as thoroughly as possible. The subject of this program is crew preparation and the critical event we call first response. The first response to a fire may represent the difference between a catastrophe and a crisis averted. In coping with fire, time can be your principal ally or your worst enemy. Fire has the ability to increase in intensity up to 5 times in the first minute, up to 25 times in the second minute, and up to 125 times in the third minute. This capacity for exponential growth means that the faster you respond to a fire, the greater your chances of controlling the damage. Two keys to extinguishing a fire are early detection and an effective first response. The sooner the fire is detected, the more time the response team has at its disposal, and the more manageable the circumstances they must deal with. Detection depends on the eyes, ears, and noses of the crew, as well as on installed detection devices. At a minimum, fire alarms should be installed in machinery spaces like the engine room, in crew quarters, and in the galley. While it's the owner's responsibility to install alarms that meet regulatory requirements, it is the crew's job to keep them functional at all times. The failure to test and service fire alarms on a routine basis can be a fatal mistake. Once a fire has been detected, first response becomes critical. What do we mean by first response? If you discover a fire, your first job is to sound the alarm. Once the alarm has been issued, the circumstances of the emergency may dictate the initial actions you can take to help control the damage. Where lives are at risk, the best initial action is helping others escape. In a small fire, the proper initial action may be mounting a fast attack with a portable extinguisher. If the fire is large, an effective initial action is sealing the space to reduce the oxygen supply and minimize the spread of smoke. Good initial action means exerting a quick positive effect on the emergency while minimizing the risk to yourself. If you discover a fire, you have to make a judgment call, and the faster you make it, the better. Good judgment results from an understanding of the nature of fire and your ability to quickly size up the hazard you are confronted with. Emergencies usually happen when you least expect them. So it isn't just the skipper and officers who need to be prepared. Anyone aboard the vessel may be confronted with the necessity of sounding the alarm and taking initial action. Being successful depends on keeping 4 first response principles in mind at all times. Now, let's see how to put them in practice. If you discover a fire, your first job is to sound the alarm. Merely shouting fire isn't enough. Your alarm must alert others who may be at risk. It must also alert the bridge and convey critical information to the officer in charge. Are personnel in immediate danger? If so, their rescue becomes the highest response priority. What is the exact location of the fire? Where is the combustion, not just the smoke? Smoke can be deceiving. An awareness of precisely which space and deck level are burning is essential for the formation of an effective response plan. What is the nature of the fire? What materials are burning? And how fast?
A mayday, a mayday.
Again, the more knowledge the commanding officer has, the better he can plan the response. Are there flames or smoke? What color is the smoke? A description of the scene gives the commanding officer a clearer picture of the emergency and a better sense of how best to cope with it. The bridge will respond to your verbal alarm by sounding the vessel's general alarm and by setting the station go, or launching a formal response to the emergency. In the meantime, you may be in a position to assist others or to buy time for the fire team. Your initial actions should be guided by the remaining principles of first response. If personnel are in danger, your foremost responsibility is to help them escape. If you're certain you can do so safely, you may be able to extinguish a small fire with the means at hand. You can help contain a large fire by sealing the burning space, shutting down ventilation, closing off fuel and electrical supplies, or removing materials that may contribute to fire spread. An understanding of the nature of fire will help guide your choice of initial actions. Fire can be represented by a four-sided figure called a tetrahedron. Heat, fuel, and oxygen form three of its sides. Fire occurs when a fuel is heated until it vaporizes. As the heated vapors are combined with oxygen, the result is rapid oxidation, or combustion. The fourth side is the chain reaction that occurs between the heat, fuel, and oxygen. In theory, fighting a fire is simple. Just remove one of the sides of the fire tetrahedron. The most common method is to remove the heat with water. Another method is to remove the fuel, for example by closing an oil supply line. A third method is to remove the oxygen by enclosing the fire in a sealed compartment. The fourth method is to apply an extinguishing agent that breaks the chain reaction. If you're certain you can extinguish the fire quickly and safely, the best initial action may be to attack it with the means at hand. Common materials like wood, cloth, or paper produce Class A fires that leave an ash. These fires are best fought with water or with A-rated extinguishers like this ABC dry chemical unit or this foam extinguisher. Aboard your vessel, extinguishers should be positioned near the hazards they are intended for. It's your job to familiarize yourself with their location and use. Combustible liquids, like diesel oil, produce Class B fires that boil or bubble. Combustible liquids burn more readily than solids because they vaporize more easily. Class B fires are best fought with B-rated extinguishers, like this dry chemical model or this CO2 unit. Dry chemical interrupts the chain reaction and suppresses fire very quickly. Because it provides little or no cooling, however, the threat of reflash remains high. Carbon dioxide reduces the oxygen content of the air below the level at which combustion can occur. It is very effective in a confined space, but the same properties that make it effective as an extinguishing agent pose a suffocating hazard for personnel. Foam removes the oxygen by blanketing the surface of the fuel and provides cooling. It works well on Class A or Class B fires. Class C fires involve electric current and necessitate special precautions because of the shock hazard. These fires require the use of non-conducting agents like CO2 or halon. If the fire is too big or too dangerous to attack by hand, your best initial action is probably containment. Remember, removing the oxygen destroys the fire tetrahedron, and you can control a fire by sealing the space in which it occurs. To be effective, you have to close doors and hatches, shut down forced ventilation, and manually seal penetrations that don't have mechanical closures. You should also eliminate the fuel by closing off supply lines and electric current. Removing adjacent materials or soaking them with water also helps control fire spread. Don't forget adjacent compartments. Think of the burning space as a cube with 6 sides that must be turned into fire boundaries. The most dangerous exposure is the overhead. As you work to contain the fire, be sure that emergency equipment can be protected. Remember, your job as the first responder is to sound an alarm that alerts others and supplies critical information to the bridge, and to take initial actions that buy time until the bridge can set the station bill and mount a formal fire response. Ensure your own safety and help others escape. Attempt an unsupported attack only after sounding the alarm, and only if you are certain the fire can be controlled quickly with the means at hand. Contain a large fire by removing the oxygen and removing the fuel. The exact sequence of steps that constitute the best initial action will be dictated by the emergency. The crucial factors are early detection, fast response, an effective alarm, self-preservation and the welfare of others, the nature of fire, and the means by which it can be controlled. First response is a duty everyone must be prepared for.